Are you ready to unlock your full potential and maximize your productivity? Look no further than Productivity Smarts, the ultimate audio podcast hosted by renowned productivity expert Gerald J. Leonard. In every episode, Gerald shares captivating stories, invaluable tips, and cutting-edge strategies that will transform the way you approach productivity. Whether you're looking to reduce stress, overcome overwhelm, or simply get more done in less time, Productivity Smarts has got you covered. But that's not all. You'll also gain inspiration from real-life success stories of individuals who have achieved greatness through productivity. Plus, you'll learn the latest tools, techniques, and habits that will help you achieve a new level of happiness and fulfillment in your personal and professional life. So why wait? Join us every week as we delve into the exciting world of productivity and help you unleash your full potential. Get ready to take your productivity to the next level with Productivity Smarts. As a productivity expert and host of the Productivity Smarts podcast, Gerald J. Leonard has been a proud supporter of Kiva since 2011. Kiva is a non-profit organization that helps entrepreneurs in third-world countries access the capital they need to start or grow their businesses. By making a small loan through Kiva, you can help these entrepreneurs achieve their dreams, support their families, and contribute to their local economies. And with a repayment rate of over 96%, your loan can be relent to another entrepreneur once it's repaid, creating a ripple effect of positive change. So if you're looking for a meaningful way to make a difference in the world, consider making a loan through Kiva. With loans as small as $25, anyone can be a microlender and help change lives. Visit kiva.org to learn more and start lending today.
Well, today we have Philip Blackett. He is the Amazon best-selling author, consultant, speaker, and entrepreneur who previously had worked at FedEx, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America, and Chick-fil-A. He got his master's in divinity from Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, his MBA from Harvard Business School, his bachelor's degree majoring in political science and economics from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Philip, how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here, Gerald. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent, man. So tell me, how did you get started in the field? We're going to talk a lot about your book, Future Proof, and it's about AI and productivity. How did you get started in this field, and what's made you successful?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that came up for me was, I'm only going to turn 40 later on this year. And a lot of people could see that as like kind of like your midlife crisis potentially, right? I just see it since like, even if that was the case, like halfway through my life, I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my first half of my life is you have to be open to flexibility.
Yep.
You have to be able to adapt. You have to be resilient. Not everything's going to work your way, but there's going to be new opportunities that come out of what you experience through life when you live it long enough that you ought to take advantage. And I think that for me, AI is definitely one of those opportunities that is a great opportunity, not just for me, not just for you, but everyone out there listening in that want to take advantage of it. I think that for me, looking back at my life, I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, definitely in the South, and went to school in the South. One of the things I learned while I was in college when I majored in politics and economics was, if I learned how politics and economics work, I know how a country works. And then if I added business and investments, I now knew how the world works. And then if I add divinity on top of that, then I know how humans want the world to work, but then I also know how God intended the world to work now and going forward.
Right.
So in my one life that I have here, I wanted to have a really good grasp of how to approach this thing called life.
Okay.
And one of the biggest lessons I've learned is, like I said, being open to new developments, including new technology like AI.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because it's obviously a journey that you've been on. When I looked at your background, I was like, okay, you went to divinity school, but then you went to Harvard for an MBA. Okay, that's not a bad school to go to. And
not at all.
And then you did, political science and economics. I'm thinking, okay, politics and money. Okay, so you kind of, you're figuring out how the world works. And so it seems like it gave you a really well-rounded background to kind of have a really interesting view of the world. What do you think is poorly understood about AI right now when it comes to productivity? And I'm sure there are people who are afraid of it or are
Yeah.
skeptical of it. Why do you think that's so?
So I think oftentimes we fear what we don't understand. And so I think that with anything that's been new technology wise, whether it's AI now, or if you think back to like the internet when it first came up, like dial up internet,
Right,
even if you go back before then, you're talking about like electricity, cars. I'm pretty sure in the midst of all those new technologies,
right,
there were people that were afraid because they did not understand what it is, what they can do with it,
right.
and how it will impact their lives going forward.
Yeah,
And so I think that's a similar stance here. I think part of the thing of learning about politics and economics is that you realize things happen in cycles
yeah,
and that history tends to repeat itself. We just don't live long enough to see all those cycles happen.
right.
So that's why it's helpful to learn as much as we can of what happened before us. And so I think something similar is the case with AI, where, yes, I definitely understand a lot of people feel threatened by it, that it could take their jobs. What I would respond with that to is something that the CEO of NVIDIA said. And he said basically, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the person that knows AI and how to use it.
Right.
That person is going to take your job.
Yeah.
So what that means is you don't have to worry about big brother technology all of a sudden come out of nowhere. It's more so, did you take advantage of the opportunity in front of you
Right.
to learn how AI can impact what you do at your job and how it can enhance what you do beyond just, trying to cheat out email to send real quick and that sort of say, oh, I know all about AI. Because another misconception is, oh, this is just, the best spell check. This is spell check 2.0. Basically, it's like I tell it to write a letter, and I'll write a letter, and I don't have to do anything more.
Right.
No, there's more to it if you don't have like a slacker mentality to it. So if you're being proactive about it and you learn as much as you can to capitalize on it, then you can really reap the benefits of what AI can be for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's with anything in our lives where there's change, we emotionally are able to handle this based on our knowledge of it and how we feel and what's going on. If we're able to grow in our knowledge and understanding of it, then we can respond better, right? Because we have a better understanding of the process. If we don't, then that becomes really, really challenging. So let me ask you this. I know you told me a little bit of your story. Tell me more about your story. Like, most kids don't grow up and think, well, okay, I'm going to go study economics and politics. I'm going to go study business and divinity to have a well-rounded understanding of the world. What was it about your upbringing that helped you to feel that way or to learn that or to think that way?
Yeah. So I think for me, growing up, I grew up, with a single mother, my sister with me, she was younger. We were raised with the assistance of my grandparents at the time. And I think what I learned from my grandmother was just the importance not only of God in my life, but also education.
Yeah.
And that being the sense of don't expect anyone just to give you what you want out of life. Learn what you need to learn, develop skills on your own to be of value to people,
Right.
that they'd be willing to trade what you know and what you can do for a way of providing for yourself.
Okay.
And so I think what came out of that was just the sense of education. It was very important, not just to rack up degrees, but more so to learn what is it you need to learn that be of value to people as far as a skill set and being able to offer that value for other people. And I think that from my grandfather in particular, he had a lot of pride in being able to provide an honest day's work. He also had dreams of owning his own business.
Okay.
He was a truck driver. He traversed long distances across the country, but he always had dreams of learning to be more for himself.
Right.
And though he wasn't able to do that before his life ended, it was something that was instilled to me to say, hey, maximize that life that you have. And if there's new opportunities, learn about them, educate yourself, and take full advantage of them because you don't know where that will lead you later on in life.
Exactly. Exactly. That's an amazing way to grow up with those various perspectives and being introduced to yourself that way. but also having models, right? Because when our parents have, left a trail, a positive trail, and whether it's a mom and dad or just the mom and your grandparents, they left a trail for you to visualize and see. This is how you handle life or what you should be pursuing. And like you said, your grandfather didn't get to pursue his full dream, but he was able to implant that dream in you so
Right.
that you could to do that as well. Now, I want to jump into your book, and I just want to also acknowledge that this is just one of the 6 books that you've written, right?
Absolutely. Talk about productivity, Gerald, right?
And so, which is awesome, and I'm sure just from talking with you, I know there's a 7th and an 8th and a ninth already in the plans that you already have thought through. I can see it in your eyes, and I can see it, as I'm talking to you, like, okay, this guy has a roadmap of what he wants to talk about and write about, because you don't do what you've done this far in your life at 39 and a half or
Right.
39 and 3/4 to get to where you are. So that's really cool. So I want to ask you about your book. So first question I have for you, because I did get a chance to go through it and read it and get some insights from it. I thought it was really well written.
Thank you.
It's not a really long book, but I think it gets to the point of
Right.
what AI is about. And it's not a techie book around AI,
Right.
but it's more about the mindset and positioning yourself to embrace it and adopt it.
Hmm.
That's what I got from it. So let me ask you this question. Can you share some key strategies from the book? And the book is called Future Proof, that professionals or anyone who's involved in productivity can implement to enhance their own productivity using AI technologies.
Absolutely. So I think you hit on the first one already, Gerald, as far as understanding AI as an opportunity for people.
Right,
When you're thinking about it in a sense like it's a mindset, this book is more so a mindset versus a how-to.
right,
And the reason why for that is that, a lot of people think that it's mindset first, then your skill set. But if you don't have the mindset right, then how can you approach any new endeavor? So, the first thing I would say is you look at AI as an opportunity, not a threat.
right,
And I know I mentioned the quote from the NVIDIA CEO, but it's really important to understand that this opportunity called AI is meant to serve you. It can enhance what you do in the workplace if you will allow it and if you are open to seeing how far you can go with it. So the first thing is just understanding like, hey, AI can be my friend. It could be my ally. It could be my co-pilot. It could be my partner
right,
while working. And so when you at least first acknowledge and agree to that, then the next thing I would say is, hey, take an inventory of what you do day to day at your job.
okay,
And then when you do that, ask yourself this question for each one of those tasks and jobs to be done. Which of these jobs to be done can I only do myself? Meaning it's not something I can really delegate to somebody. It's something that I have like a own personal touch or some sort of significance or skill set that not anyone in my team or my company or organization can really do.
right,
And it's not going to be the same way unless I do it. Okay. If you do that, put those tasks to the side. Then what's left? Okay. Which one of these tasks can I delegate either to another person that can do it at least 80% well as I can or better? Or now with AI, which of these tasks can I delegate to AI in particular?
right,
So it's something where I would think about like some like if I was a communicator, for example, I served as a communicator when I worked at FedEx. If I was in that same job now with AI, the first thought that comes to my mind is despite all the education I've learned, Gerald, to write solid letters and emails and presentations and that sort,
right,
I feel like now AI just basically said, hey, that's nice, Philip, but now I can have everyone else do something similar. Okay. Once I put my pity party aside and my pride that's now weakened aside, okay, let's use this as an example. Can I use an AI tool that can get me a first draft of an email?
Right.
a first draft of a letter and that sort, give it some prompts as far as what I want to achieve on it. And then what I can do that's more so me is add my own personality to it when I edit it, or certain things I can add to it that a machine like an AI tool can't necessarily replicate or duplicate.
Right.
But that's a short example to say for your audience to think of. It's like, let's just be honest with that, with your tools and in your job, and understand if an AI tool can do something that you normally do at least 80% as well as you or better, and do it in like half the time, what can you now do with the freed up time you have now?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so with that freed up time, there's probably tasks that you had before that you kept saying to yourself, oh, when I have enough time, I'll get to it. Or, oh, I'm sorry, boss or manager, I just haven't had the time because I've been doing all this stuff now. Well, here's the trade-off with AI too, Gerald. Some of these excuses you've been saying at work are going to go away, because now it's like when certain AI tools you use can quickly do some of the grunt work or some of the work that takes a lot of time off your hands.
Yep.
And they could do that in the background and then do that quicker than you could on your own. Now it's like, okay, you have freed up an extra 4 hours a day to put in your sphere of genius on what you're working on.
Right.
And that's where you're really supposed to like focus on doing that and say, hey, how can I continue this? Because if I free up 4 hours a day, or even just 2 hours a day, okay, 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's 10 extra hours times another 3 weeks on top of that. That's 40 hours. You have a full week
Yeah. Within the month.
within the month saved
Right.
up. This now is like, okay, now I can take on different projects. Now I can focus on more of what I've been wanting to take on my to-do list, but I couldn't do it. Or now I can focus on further educating myself to be that much more valuable, to take some of these AI tools to another level. Because
Right.
if you have that reputation within your organization as somebody that has worked with AI rather than resist AI, and as somebody that's continually educating yourself on it and how it can improve not just your job, but also other people's jobs, you quickly start to build a reputation, not just as a thought leader, but also as a linchpin, as somebody that your manager, your CEO, whatever person in leadership role will say, that person we have to keep.
Yeah.
We have to help elevate that person. We have to promote that person. We have to keep that person around, because I cannot tell you how many times, Gerald, each week in 2024 already, it's only like April by the time we're recording this, of me seeing news of companies laying off hundreds, if not thousands of employees.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to be that people are trying to figure out how to get the most productive people to stay and promote them. And the ones that aren't as productive, they're basically saying, hey, let me see if I can replace them with AI.
Right.
But once again, it's not AI taking your job. It's the people that are productive with it and the ones who are even more productive to use AI that are doing that.
Exactly. It's funny because I saw with what you're talking about, I saw the same thing with just using technology in general, right? And automation. I a long time ago was on doing consulting and project work, and there would be teams of people. Let's say a project team with a consultant company would be a team of 10 or 20 people. And they would land at a client site and do all this work. And one of my last physical projects that I did, that I'm still working with this client on retainer and supporting them. But when we implemented a really large, complex scheduling solution that controlled over 14,000 projects, it was myself as a subject matter expert and 3 developers. That was the entire team. And we could make things happen, transform the data, do things that I would sit there and think in the past, this would have taken a team of 20 people to do what we are doing. But now, because we have these software skills, these scripting skills, this technology, and this automation, we're able to do all of that work with just 3 developers and an expert on the tool. And so now you add AI that now learns from all the data and from capturing all the information, and it finds out all the best ways to do things or insights or research. Now you can probably do that same project with 2 people, someone who's really an expert and someone who's a developer, because now you have an extra developer in AI. They can actually write more code along with the developer. And so it's not the 2 people who have that skill are still going to have the job.
Right. It's funny you say that because I was just thinking that too. Like, you remember the time not too long ago where they said coding is the way of the future. We need
Right.
to teach our young kids how to code. We are going to put out programs, commit to scholarships,
Right.
and put a huge investment into teaching people how to code. Well, that was pre-AI, because
Exactly.
now with AI, it's a junior coder is now at risk because an AI can come up with at least a draft of what you want to code in a fraction of the time. That's about the same skill set as a junior coder, if not better. And like you said before, AI keeps learning.
Yes.
AI doesn't take time off.
Right.
AI doesn't go on vacation. So if you want AI to keep running throughout the night, 24/7, you can do that. You can't do that with humans.
Exactly.
They'll put those businesses in trouble if you try to work somebody 24/7.
Exactly. And that was the reason why we leveraged the automation in the process, because once we built a process and some automated jobs, they are going to run in the middle of the night all night long and never complain, never have anything. They're going to get it done. But it was having that skill to be able to do that. And I guess that's the point I'm trying to make, is that as you're talking about embracing and leveraging AI as a co-pilot, you're positioning yourself to be that person who has the skills to work along with the technology. Now, when you think about all of that, in your opinion, what do you think are some of the misconceptions around AI? I know we talked about some of the productivity things and things that you've done before, but in regards to AI and its impact on productivity, and how does your book address that? I think you talk something about AI relevance in your book.
Absolutely. So I think, one of the common misconceptions is AI is a fad. All right, we'll put that aside and just
Right.
quickly say that that's not true. But when we think about AI relevance, it's more so the sense of thinking, okay, how is this something where you essentially look at it as like, how can it relate to what you do on a day-to-day basis? And can it learn what you do in a sense where not only just it helps how you do something,
Yep.
but it now can open yourself up to do other things. And
Yes.
so what I think about like the misconceptions is it's just one that's just, I mentioned it earlier. It's like some people might think of this as like this is kind of like a cheat code where I
Okay.
can kind of slack my way through it. And it's just enough where it's like I can just get this job done and I just save myself time and I could just lollygag at work.
Right.
And what we talked about already is that's no longer the case, because with this new technology, every manager, every executive is learning as far as like, where am I investing my time? Where am I investing my people and my money? And how can I get the best return? And like you said, if you can get a project done with 2 people versus 4, 9 times out of 10, it's going to get done with just 2 people.
Right.
And so when it comes to relevant, you have to look at it in the sense it's like, how is AI going to be a relevant part of your skill set and toolkit?
Exactly.
Because otherwise, if you're not growing with it, if you're not having AI be relevant with you on this, that's a quick and easy way for you to be irrelevant to
Right.
your job and to your organization.
Exactly. Now, I know in that same section of the book where you talk about AI relevance, the thing that stood out to me was that it's not just for techies, because you talk about, in marketing and sales and finance
Right.
and operations, how AI can be leveraged across diverse fields or diverse skill sets. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's like I mean, that's a common misconception too. You would think too, it's like, oh, this is just a techie thing. Like, I don't work in tech. I don't need to worry about this.
Right.
Wrong again. It's one of those things that if you get the whole pack that this is supposed to be a productivity play,
Right.
and productivity doesn't exist in technology alone,
Right.
right? So it's more so is how can I do my job in operations quicker? So when you're talking about not being the bottleneck, when you're talking about fitting certain times and certain output in a certain period of time, your manager, your plant manager is going to be looking at if we're doing 800 bottles a month, I want to know how we can get that to 900.
Right.
And if there's something out there that can help us get to 900, best believe we're going to go ahead and research that and implement it. Same thing with marketing. The biggest thing for businesses to be known for is from their content that they're producing every day and every week. If I used to have, to your same point, for me to produce a significant amount of content for a business, I needed a marketing director, a marketing assistant, a video editor, a audio editor, a podcaster, a copywriter, a ads person.
Right.
So it's up to the point like 6 to 8 people, your whole marketing department. But now I can get the same amount of content, same amount of output, same amount of productivity with instead of 8 people, now I can have it with just 3 people. The marketing director, the person that knows the AI tools, and a virtual assistant or intern.
Right.
You probably could even get it done with 2, depending on the product. So
Right.
the relevancy is don't think that AI only applies to technology. Like whether you're in finance,
Right.
legal, marketing, operations, sales. I've seen it in sales, Gerald, that sales calls are being made by AI. So imagine somebody picking up the phone and it's not me, an actual human on the other line asking if you want to take a call with me to buy my product or service. It's AI. And like we said before, AI doesn't take off.
Right.
AI doesn't take vacations. AI doesn't have sick days. So if I put on an AI tool that can do 2,000 sales calls at the same time, and I'm paying like 7 to 8 cents a minute for it versus paying a salesperson $60,000 just to show up, which one do you think I'm likely to go with?
Exactly.
So I think that's the part where it's just, please do not think of AI as just a segmented phenomenon for one part of the business model.
Right. Right.
It's applying to everything.
Right. And I think it's also important at this point, especially with the things we're talking about, just to kind of reiterate that the goal of AI is not to replace everyone's job. But like with when farming went from just being something that we did as humans to then developing machines that could clear a whole field within a matter of hours and compared to months or weeks, the new technology was implemented. And everyone who was a farmer or worked on a farm pretty much lost their job as a farmer. And that's when they moved to the city and started discovering new jobs. So it's always going to be a time where we have to constantly reinvent. And I think, one of the things that you talk about, and this actually really leads into the next question I have, is that growth mindset, right? When you think about AI and see it, how it's transforming our landscape of productivity within the various industry, and you look out 5 to 10 years based on your research and the things that you've written about in the book, how does that apply to that growth mindset and also like the ethical AI integration framework that you talk about in the book?
Yeah. So I think a big part of it when we talk about growth mindset is just, this is, wow, this is only 2024. Like they talked about Chat GPT in 2023, 2022, and we're seeing exactly all the stuff that's being happened now. Like for you to like take it out 5, maybe even 10 years from now, like this is the part where when people thought the Jetsons was clearly a fantasy when they saw the cartoon,
Right.
this is when you're thinking, okay, like between Tesla cars and AI, can we get to an actual Jetsons in like 10 years? Right. And so what comes with that is not just wondering about it, twiddling our thumbs and just looking out the window to see when it happens. This gets to the point of when you think about what kind of mindset you're going to have, this is the perfect time to grow with it
Right.
because AI is going to keep growing. Like over the course of this podcast, AI has gotten better.
Yeah.
Right. It's every day. There's new iterations, there's new versions being done, there's new tools being premiered and launched.
Right.
And it's constantly learning upon itself, its own errors to improve itself, to get as close to perfect as possible. And my thought is honestly, Gerald, what if every human took upon themselves to have a growth mindset similar to AI?
Hmm.
Where it's just like you're constantly looking for ways to improve yourself. You're not necessarily complacent with just staying the way you are.
Right.
And it's not like you're ever going to keep up with AI, but it's more so the sense there's so much to learn, if nothing else, in just your own particular field, in your own particular job or industry, that there's enough to keep you busy if you at least commit yourself to say, hey, every week I'm going to make sure I read this new issue of this newsletter that talks about AI tools in my space. Or I'm going to listen on the way to work this podcast that talks about this one AI strategy that I can use in my work or career right now.
Right.
So it's more so the sense of however way you best learn. It's more so about taking the opportunity to learn somehow, some way, how to improve, how to encompass AI in what you do, and how do you do it in a way that in 5 to 10 years from now, you're going to look back and say, wow, I can't believe I used to work like that because now it's completely night and day compared to how I do things now with AI.
Right.
Now, to that second point with ethical AI, it's very important to think of, listen, there are trade-offs to new technology.
Yeah.
Like I can look at technology of old, and we talked about the internet, we talked about cars, you can talk about firearms, you can talk about ships, or even just machinery on farms. If they're placed in the wrong hands, they could be used for bad, for
Yeah.
evil,
Yeah.
right? It's just a sense is like if you had a kitchen knife, right? To one person, it's there to cut butter for your bread. For another person, it might be seen as a weapon.
Yeah.
The tool is still the same. It's just the person that has it. What is that person's intentions behind it?
Yeah.
And that's the same thing I would apply to a tool like AI. So I think that everybody that has access to AI, you have to be cognizant of the power you have in your hands.
Yeah.
And more so thinking in terms of not just for your job and career, but also for your fellow person in your community. There's a great responsibility that comes with this. And I
Exactly.
think that it really behooves us to really take that responsibility seriously and work towards being as ethical as we possibly can to do the right thing, especially when we get tempted to do the opposite if the situation presents itself.
Exactly. Exactly. That leads me actually to the next topic, because you talked about, AI can be used for good or bad, right? The ethical part of AI. And then again, we talk about the growth mindset and, even being resilient with AI. But, I thought about this as you were talking. I thought, and I use it myself a lot, right? But one of the things I do use AI for is to help me figure out what to learn and how best to learn it. And so instead of seeing AI as it's another thing I got to learn, you can
Mhm.
actually work with AI to figure out what are the things I need to learn for this area that are going to help me to be the most effective in that area. And it's probably already figured out what are the 20% of the things that you need to learn to be effective to keep your job and to work with it. But you
Mhm.
just have to ask it. And so the next question I had was, for an individual who's in that situation, they want to master AI, how do they balance the integration of AI tools with their existing skills to maximize their productivity and to grow their career, and not to be found on the other side of that chopping block, if you will, but to be on the positive side where they're the ones that are being asked to stay because they've learned how to work along with the new technology and not fighting against it.
Mm-hmm. You know what's the good thing about AI, Gerald?
What's that?
You don't have to be an executive to have your own executive assistant.
Well, there you go.
You don't have to be a officer at your company to have your own leadership coach, your own career coach.
Right.
Because now you have tools that if you just ask it the right way, AI can share with you, hey, I'm a new person in this role. These are our functions. How do you foresee the future of my job in the next couple of years? And AI will tell you. You can then follow up that prompt, if you want to say it that way, and ask, okay, given that, what is the best way for me to prepare for what's going on? And what do you essentially start going down the pathway with, Gerald, is having an actual conversation with AI.
Yeah.
You can ask quote unquote silly questions. You can show yourself vulnerable in front of it. It's like, hey, I don't know this. Help me understand this. Oh, tell it to me in a different way, please. Can you try using a analogy or a video or some sort of way? This is how I best learn. Can you help me this way? So now it's like, you don't even have to worry like, oh, I can only ask these questions during office hours too.
Right.
So if this idea comes to me at 7:09 at night, oh man, I have to wait till tomorrow. No, you actually can go to your computer
Or
and you
your
can
phone.
ask that question, or your phone, and you can ask that question.
Yeah.
And you can go back and forth and start planning out, or it'll plot it out for you. And you just have to print it and just go over it, what your performance driven plan should be, or your professional development plan should be.
Yeah.
And so now it's one where it's like, it really is limited by how involved or how engaged you want to be
Right.
and how serious you want to take your career, because you now have an access to a resource that you didn't have before, because you used to think that that resource was another human being.
Right.
And you have to go based off of that human being's schedule, if he or she is available, or if they're at work today. Do I have enough money to pay them for their time?
Right.
Or do I have to bribe them over lunch or coffee? Now it's like a lot of that stuff goes away.
Yeah.
And I think it really just is dependent on the type of questions you ask of AI
Yep.
and how far you want to go towards planning a career and a job where you're working with AI versus without it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So now as we begin to wrap this up, and I'm thinking about all that we're just talking about. Oh, and besides that, one of the things that I was thinking about that you said that I always do with AI, if I study something that's really complex, like I did a bunch of reading on quantum physics, and I was trying to understand some of the theories, and I would ask AI, can you explain it to me as if I was 8 years old? And
Yep.
it did. It would take these really complex concepts and break them down and explain them as if I was 8 years old. And I go, oh, that's what that means. Okay. And it did it because it used a lot of analogies or metaphors that an 8-year-old would understand. But I just thought it was really interesting that it could do that, or that I could get those kind of explanations from something that is that complex. The other thing I use it for too is if I'm learning something new and I want to make sure I'm getting the best books out there on this particular topic, I will then go and say, hey, I'm looking to learn X, Y, and Z. What are some of the most peer-reviewed, the best books that I can read or study on this topic? It gives me a list of the book. Then I can go and say, can you give me a summary of each of those books? Now I'm using AI as a learning tool. I can still go buy the books and scan them and read them and spend time in them, but now I'm actually using it as an aid to help me to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, if you focus on what's the 20% that I need to know to be effective at this job, then I'm not wasting time on the 80 that's really not relevant.
Right.
You know what I mean? So lastly, I want to ask you this. How can individuals stay updated and continuously adopt to the new evolving AI landscape and continually remain productive in the competitive fields that we're all in? How can they continually just keep improving themselves with this tool?
Yeah. So I think it starts from how we began this from the very beginning. It starts with mindset, Gerald. I think that when you have a growth mindset that you're here to learn this new thing
Right.
and you're looking at this as like, I'm going to try a little bit in bite-sized pieces each day
Yeah.
to get better than I was yesterday. You don't have to take it that much further than that. Like, how can I get a little bit better today than I was yesterday? And you already mentioned you don't have to do this literally by yourself.
Right.
You can have AI as an aid that can not only summarize and retrieve information for you, but depending on the tool, it'll actually narrate it and talk it out to you if you want to. So all you got to do is just listen.
Exactly.
And so I think that, it really does come out from a sense of curiosity,
Yeah.
where the reason why I didn't list out certain AI tools is that probably by the time you listen to this, there are probably going to be different iterations of these tools, different
Right.
versions, or different tools altogether.
Yeah.
So it's not so much the tool itself, it's about being able to learn what is your approach to it
Yeah.
and be open to learning what's out there and experiment.
Right.
Like actually try out different tools in a certain category, see what resonates for you, see what you can learn from it over time, and just practice. Practice using it, do different scenarios at your job or even outside of your job. There's a lot of the AI can do at home. you
Right.
know, it's not just limited to just Siri and Alexa now. There's
Exactly.
a lot you can do there. So I think it really comes out to, are you going to make the commitment to pace yourself and learn what you can do with AI that impacts your job and your home life, and just take it one step at a time?
Exactly. Exactly. Phil, this has been a really great conversation. And I know that as people are listening to this, they're going to start thinking differently about AI and realize that AI is a productivity tool. But just like the podcast, it can be used in a smart way, right? It can be used in an intelligent way. And we can use it to help us learn how to use it.
Right.
We can actually work along with it. Is there anything I forgot that I should have asked you or that we should have talked about? I know there's a lot in the book and we can't cover every single chapter and all the details, but was there anything that I left out or that I could have asked?
So I think one thing I'll mention too is I know we talked a good deal about, learning with AI, right?
Yeah,
AI is our friend, our aid, our co-pilot. We work alongside each other in tandem. I also would include that it's also helpful to build your network
yeah,
of people that are going through something similar, more than likely.
right.
They're trying to learn AI as well in their own jobs. It may be in the same field as you, different function or a different company. But I think that networking, it sounds old school, it still applies here. It's
Yes,
something that can help you take the fear down of learning something new
right.
and relate with somebody that's in the same path as you. It's also one that you can be exposed to different thought leaders, different authors, different collaborators in this space, even go to different conferences, different events. So you can congregate with other people that are trying to learn. So it actually boosts you up to know that, hey, I'm not the only one taking on this growth mindset at my job. There's other people as well, which further propels you to keep going on your journey to learn as much as you can, bit by bit, lesson by lesson, day by day, to understand how AI can work for you and your job and then your life as well.
Exactly, exactly. So where can people learn more about you and your 6 books and the books that you have coming up and learn more about AI and the things that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way to find out about Future Proof and the books I have is go to Amazon and just look me up, Philip Blackett, PhilipBlackett. Outside of that, I'm on LinkedIn. I have a newsletter called Use AI to Grow Your Business that comes out every week. I actually just published the next issue earlier this afternoon. We'd love for you to take a look at that. If it's something you like, feel free to subscribe for new issues on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you there. And also, you can go to my website, philipblackett.com.
Well, Philip, thank you so much for joining Productivity Smarts podcast and for spending time with me today and really adding some really amazing nuggets of knowledge and insight and wisdom and your holistic view of life that you've learned from your grandparents and your mom that I think has served you very, very well. And I know I got a lot out of this. I'm sure the folks who are listening have gotten a lot out of this as well. So thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Gerald. Thank you so much for having me.
If you're enjoying the content and finding it valuable, we would appreciate it if you could take a moment and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us and helps us reach a wider audience. If you leave us a 5-star review, it would mean the world to us. Not only does it help us improve the podcast, but it also helps us attract more sponsors and grow our community. Thank you again for your support and for listening to the Productivity Smarts podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to Productivity Smarts, where we help you achieve your goals and live your best life. We hope you've gained valuable insights and actionable strategies to boost your productivity and increase your happiness and fulfillment. Remember to apply what you've learned and keep striving towards your goals. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more inspiring episodes and expert advice from our host, Gerald J. Leonard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and unleashing your productivity smarts.